The other point I was going to make relates to laundry locations. When I got into the business, typically you would always hear, we want apartment areas and dense areas. That was true then and is still true today. However, there's a lot of other additional areas where the homes were circa World War II, very small homes that either didn't have laundry hookups or it would take up too much space. I know multiple neighborhoods in this city that I'm in where that's true, and they're good laundry areas. Other good areas are beach areas. People don't realize that because generally it's thought of as lower income people are the nucleus of the business, and that's where we want to locate because dense areas generally equal lower income. That's not always true. We have a lot of areas in Los Angeles, for example, that are densely packed and they're very, very affluent.
Mm-hmm.
And the beach communities are certainly affluent. The people there are not price sensitive. They are cleanliness sensitive, but they're not price sensitive. And those, because of limitations imposed by the government on building within X number of feet of the coast, ensure that those stores really don't have future competition. So those types of stores may be very good. And there are other beach communities throughout and vacation communities throughout the United States where that's very, very true. People wouldn't think to locate a store there, and they'd be wrong. I can think of, for example, if you located a store at a truck stop, it would be incredible. You have a ton of transient people coming by who are not going to be price sensitive, who probably would welcome that because a lot of these stops have overnight facilities where you could do very, very well. And you would have continuous business. The other thing that we in the business understand is that the laundry year closely parallels, or it certainly did pre-COVID, the school year,
mm-hmm.
which means that we die in the summertime, and come September, October, we start picking up really well, and December, January, February, we hit the crescendo. And if you're a buyer of a store, understand that. Don't get fooled on extrapolating numbers, because it's which numbers you extrapolate that count, which months you're including. And certainly as a seller, you don't want to sell your store based on July and August numbers. You're significantly better off to have a subsequent 6-month period that excludes them. So whoever does their homework on this, their due diligence, should see a full year, and they should see multiple years. They should see utility bills. And if they speak with someone knowledgeable, like an Andy Cunningham, they'll tell them that there's a seasonality factor. Don't be fooled by that. So it's really helpful for what you don't know to seek out that knowledge. You can't. I overpaid about $50,000 for my first store. Very, very easy to do, and that's the best education is to overpay. So fool me once, you won't fool me twice.
That's right. Yeah, that's I've been in the same boat, and expensive lessons learned. But like you said, you just kind of keep moving and take those lessons for what they are. A couple quick thoughts on all those things you just said. Love the truck stop idea. I've never heard anybody say that before, but I think that's a great idea. Somebody should do that. Number 2, I love the beach community idea. I've been eyeballing a laundromat at Newport Beach for like years. that eventually I will get. Or I have this dream of just going to get a laundromat in Hawaii that either I can expense my trips out to Hawaii, or I can just kind of move out there and have my Hawaii laundromat. But in all seriousness, those beach communities also tend to be more tightly regulated, and not just beach communities, but touristy areas in general tend to be more tightly regulated, which means less building, less likely for competition, because they want to preserve the attractiveness of the area. And so, they do tend to be more tightly regulated and less spacious. They want, there's more value in land in these areas. So, the living residences tend to be less spacious, which, may indicate that there's, opportunity for laundromats in those areas too.
Yeah. The other thing, it's very smart for you, before you buy a store, to look at any local ordinances regarding having employees on the premises, regarding operating hours, regarding sewer hookup fees. I know of an area where it's over $5,000 per machine, sewer hookup fee. Now, if you are the owner of the store, you're in like Flynn, because no one can pencil out a store that's going to make any sense to compete against you. So, and unfortunately, the politicians do things in a vacuum. They don't understand what they're doing, that the lion's share of the customer base who will use those stores are people who are on tight incomes, and they're making their lives prohibitively expensive, because the laundry owner is going to have to charge more just to break even. Oh, and one more thing, something to avoid. I said you'd look typically itinerant and transient areas, circa World War II housing with the old small houses and apartment buildings. What I found, and I almost made the mistake, it took someone to point it out to me. I loved a store that I found was clean, it was quiet, the people, there was no hubbub, there was no graffiti, until a seasoned vet pointed out that the average age of the person in the store was virtually dead. And was right. To the extent you had more elderly people there, there was very little washing done. They would use top load machines, and the smaller families, and they would be very happy to sit around within the store. Mm-hmm. And I've since realized that, as I've studied some other areas where the demographic shift is older, that those simply are not good laundry areas, because what you want are big families and a lot of turns, and you want people coming in and out who are busy, who don't want to sit in your store all day. So, which is why before you buy a store, it's very, very helpful to drive areas and actually go and sit in various stores and see if you can come up with any common denominators.
Yeah, awesome advice. And yeah, I think the avoiding kind of the elderly areas is great tip, something I never thought about before. I'm glad somebody pointed it out to you before you pulled the trigger and learned another expensive lesson. You can only learn so many expensive lessons before you just go broke. So
good. Very, very true.
Good to learn from other people. Yeah.
Look, I've also had, unfortunately, I've had stories where someone bought a store based on the numbers, and the numbers were accurate. And then they either had riots in the neighborhood or they had an earthquake where all adjacent businesses were destroyed in a significant part of the area. That changed the dynamics immeasurably. The store was no longer viable through no fault of anyone's, by the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't a seller who was misrepresenting, and it was simply the one of those things that happens in life. They always wind up in litigation, but that's costly, and it's not going to change the facts.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. You know, there are things that happen that you just can't control. And those are the punches you just got to roll with and chalk them up to, hey man, life just dealt me a bad hand on this one, but you keep moving forward, right? Keep going, and you just don't roll over and die. Just keep going.
One of the stores that I used to own, I had sold the store to someone. A gang firebombed the store. The entire store was burned down.
Jeez.
I then know someone who bought the equipment because the lender wound up with the equipment, which of course had a fire smell to it.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's not that type of situation is uncommon, but to have all of that used equipment is not. Very often someone will get stuck with it, a lender, and it could be a lender from across the country who certainly doesn't want to warehouse it or move all the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's in everyone's best interest to leave it local and to put it back into a store.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure we could kind of go back and forth trading horror stories, of things that can go wrong and do go wrong. And, that's where, maybe we should have an episode on insurance at one point here too, because that's where, hopefully you have some insurance that's going to help you out on that stuff, but stuff does happen, right? This is business. And you said it right from the beginning. This is a business, right? And it's not easy. It's not, hands off. It's a business and things happen. And I say all the time, like whenever you're dealing with people or a whole bunch of machines, like stuff's going to go wrong and you're just not going to be able to help it. So you need to be the kind of person who can handle stuff when stuff goes wrong, because it will. That's what happens in business.